Sports presents Benning Bites with Damon Benning. Benning Bites with Damon Benning.
Another fantastic episode of Benning Bites. Gosh, I feel like I'm in your living room. Am I too close to you guys? Are you okay with that? Shane, you're supposed to help me out with how this whole thing works, right?
I think you're fine, Damon.
I don't know, man. I feel like I'm some of these guys that they get on social media and they're self-proclaimed guys that like to be about other people, and all of a sudden all you ever see them with is their picture on social media. It's like, hey, man, I don't follow you to see your face. I follow you to see what else you're doing. So anyway, I say all that because I care. How's that, Shane? I changed the camera angle. Are we better?
Yeah, that's better.
We're good, man. A lot on my mind. You guys do a really good job, guys and gals, actually, because I got the strength and conditioning question from a young lady that was really good about Nebraska and their performance and what they want to see in terms of strength and conditioning. And it's a hard question, right? Because strength and conditioning is one of those things that um, somebody's usually the expert, somebody's not. You heard Coach Rhule last week during signing day say, "Hey, listen, what strength and conditioning? I try to hire experts. I always want to be on the cutting edge. I want to do this, that, and the other." And he kind of sprinkled it in after the fact that he said, "Hey, I already like the way that a couple of guys' body types have changed over the last 2 weeks." And it got me thinking. I'm like, because I've seen a ton, sometimes way too much when it comes to strength and conditioning and coaches and who's a good guy, Schmidt and Kennedy, all these guys that we talk about, the best in the country. And I think a lot of it has to do with the correlation between strength and conditioning coaches have with their head coach, because their head coach usually is the guy or gal that dictates what they want their players to look like and how they want them to function. So those things kind of have to coexist. So when I listened to Coach Rhule talk about Corey, I was just thinking, and I say C squared. And first time I think C squared, I think Clinton Childs, and I think Coffee and Cream, and I think Corey Campbell. Right. So when I think about all those things, because they're all Husker related, I think intensity and intentional. Because this is the thing about strength and conditioning, right? I didn't always subscribe to the back and forth and the hammering of Zach Duvall, because I didn't really appreciate that. But it wasn't because I felt like somebody was right and somebody was wrong. I just felt like with Nebraska and their strength and conditioning, we didn't know enough because it wasn't talked about readily. So I felt like we were speculating, right? Well, these big guys, they don't seem to be in shape, or they don't do well late in games, and this, that, and the other. And I wasn't defending Zach because I love Zach Duvall. I just was saying, man, I think we need to leave it open to interpretation a little bit, because sometimes when you feel bad psychologically or emotionally, you're scarred, you don't perform very well. And that's just how life goes, right? If you have some other things that are bothering you, that are emotionally kind of holding you back, you don't function well, you don't move well, you don't hop out of bed if you don't feel good about yourself. So I was always reluctant to judge that because I wasn't there every day to see how those guys train. It was hard for me to compare how the same team could travel to Norman 2 years ago and lose a one-score game to Oklahoma and be the same team with a new coach. Both teams had new coaches, to get blown out like that in Lincoln. And then all of a sudden we talk about athleticism. Like, I didn't get that comparison from last year Nebraska to this year Nebraska versus Oklahoma. A lot of those guys were the same. So strength and conditioning program hadn't changed. So I was very reluctant to cast blame. And so I think what's interesting this time around is Coach Rhule is very forthright in terms of, hey, I don't know anything. I'm leaving this up to this guy. This is why I hire experts. This is what I like, what goes on in the weight room, because the players spend the most time with the strength and conditioning staff, more so than coaches. I think if you break down the NCAA hours by the rule, especially when you factor in summer. in terms of those workouts. And so it's really important. So are we more patient with Coach Rhule because he was forthright? Was it simply because he was transparent and said, not my area of expertise, but I do like this guy because I know that, hey, on one hand, he can tear you down and hold you accountable, but he can do it in a loving manner because I know that he wants the best for his guys and they do too. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, shoot, woo! And him we trust because he simply made himself available to say it. Maybe. I don't know. I don't really have a dog in the hunt except to say is I just think it's interesting how we look at things through different lenses based on who we trust. And that's ultimately where I'm going to land this plane. It's always about trust, playing time, credibility, leeway, grace. It all typically boils down to trust in all facets of life, whether it's athletics, your family, or work. Who do I trust? Why was the Scarface line so popular? Who do I trust? Who do I trust? Me. That's who. Why? Because people related with Tony Montana when they were watching that show, right? It was like, oh man, if I have to ride with somebody, I'm riding with me. I trust me. Especially as skepticism and cynicism grows in 2023. So is it the fact that Coach Rhule made himself vulnerable, forthright, authentic, honest, if you will, and saying what he said about trusting his strength and conditioning staff? Does that play a Jedi mind trick? Ah, young Luke Skywalker. Trust plenty he in thee. Or something like that, if you like the little green guy. Right? Did he play a Jedi mind trick on you? Because he said, listen, it's out of my area of expertise. I trust that guy. And because we trust Coach Rhule, we trust him too. Is that what happened? Because then all of a sudden I heard, man, I can't wait to see who he's talking about. Who are those guys that look better in 2 weeks? Just a year ago, we were making jokes. Oh, can't wait for the strength and conditioning pictures. Who's doing tug of war? Who looks like they're fit? Oh, just win games. Does that mean that has their body type changed? But we're clamoring for it in 2023, and I love it. Why? Because that's what makes fans fans. Glass, it may be empty for a while and it may be doom and gloom, but man, in the offseason, everybody's got a chance. And in the offseason, you guys are back for more. I want to see these body types. I want to see spring ball because you know what? We have 226 guys on scholarship, and God dang it, it's going to be competitive. And you guys and gals are here for it. I love it. And I'll be here to break it all down for you when you need me. It's an old song by Aaron Hall. The group was Guy. The song was When You Need Me, I'll Be Right There. So when you need me, I'm here. It's called Benning Bites. So however you get them, Google, Spotify, Apple, whatever. Be a part of the team. I need you because you help me give you guys content for what you need. Ask and ye shall receive. And I've got a huge surprise coming with Coach Rhule and company. Huge. Hasn't been done anywhere else. Why? Because we trust and we build relationships being authentic. So we'll see what I can do with Coach Rhule to be there for you guys. Stay tuned. It's Benning Bites.